Soulful Cannabis event. I'm Shuda, along with my co-founders, Jason Mitchell and Julie Kline. I'm pleased to welcome you to today's event. It promises to be a fun and informative day. Cannabis is the botanical name for marijuana, for those of you who are not aware of that. The cannabis industry is just getting started. So while Jason has been in the industry for 10 years, and I've been in the industry for 5 years, and Julie for a few years as well, we know that there is a lot of track being laid right now in the cannabis industry. So we started Soulful Cannabis to help cannabis industry be the best version of itself. This is the time to do it, and that means that we want to be a hub where participants and those aspiring to join the cannabis industry can join to co-create a more meaningful future. We feel that patient advocacy and education was a good place to start, so that's what today's event is about. And we're doing it here in Media. This is my hometown, so I'm really pleased to be starting out right here in Media. Please stop by our table in the lobby to learn more about our emerging work around hemp and urban farming, a caregivers network. We have a spirit and energy group and a cannabis industry accountability group. So these are groups that are just getting started, or people that are interested in these topics, and we're going to try to help facilitate those kinds of conversations as things go on. Also, we have a mobile app for Soulful Cannabis. There's information out front that you can read about. It was put together by our good friend Jesse Brookman of XYZ Software. So check out the posters about how to download the mobile app. You'll also find out that we have Wi-Fi access. There's a little yellow poster over there that has the Wi-Fi access. If you want to connect, feel free. We're grateful to Media Borough for making this community center available, this great space. We also have centerpieces on some of the kitchen tables for conversations. They came from the Transition Town Media Free Store, which is a remarkable place here in Media where everything is free. We've done our best to do this in a sustainable manner. That's one of our core values. So we're going to have pens that we'll distribute to get audience questions for the panelists. Those are all recycled. We have water stations over here, so we weren't using plastic bottles. And our friend Jim Worster from New Avenue Foundation is providing coffee for today's event as well. So learn about Jim's group in the back over here. He's doing work with disabled adults to help them find meaningful employment and housing. We have many industry groups sponsored today. Please visit our sponsors over here. Some of the best dispensaries and grower processors in Pennsylvania are here to talk to you about the industry. And you know, as far as this goes, we're going to be having panelists and speakers all day long. We encourage you guys to continue the conversations. You know, we don't have to stop everything for the speakers. It's going to be a little bit more of a carnival, kind of bizarre atmosphere, but that's fine. We want it to be very organic and lively. And we got the speaker here so the speakers and panelists can be heard over the din. So feel free to participate and have those conversations. So we're grateful to our sponsors who helped us put this event on for free. Our friends from Canacare Docs are over here to help with patient registration and certification questions. And we have doctors and medical professionals. I think we already have a couple of tables set up. So if you want to talk to doctors or medical professionals who are working in the space, you can sit down and have one-on-one conversations with them back in the corner and over here around near the entrance. We also have numerous volunteers. You can see some of them in the Soulful Cannabis shirts. And you know, some maybe don't have the shirts because I think we're going to run out of shirts soon. But thank you guys. We appreciate all of the volunteers. And we couldn't have done this without you all. All right, so thank you all for coming. I'm deeply appreciative of everyone's participation. This is really an exciting event for us. We've been working on it for months, and it's really thrilled to see it come together. It's a new day in the cannabis industry, and everybody here is part of that. So I'm going to turn it over to my partners, Jason and Julie, to say a few words, and then we're going to have our first speaker up.
Thank you, Skip. Jason Mitchell, Like Skip said, I've been in this cannabis industry, blessed to be in it about 9 years now, all facets from the ground up. And this is by far the most humbling and rewarding for me is grassroots education and advocacy with patients and the people of this industry. So, I don't want to take a lot of time. You can find me on the floor all day. I'd love to engage with everybody, and I encourage everybody here to do the same. This room will fill up with some of the best assets that the cannabis industry have to offer in PA right now. I'm blessed to be, familiar with all these people. Please use those tools and engage everybody in the room the best you can. We want people to leave here with some sort of call to action. We're going to move forward with other small education events, but we want to move this into, again, like Skip said, making this industry the best it can be for patients and itself. So we want everybody to leave here with some sort of inspiration or desire of what to do next. But we really, really, really appreciate you taking the time and coming out and answering, the questions you may have, asking the questions you may have for answers. Thank you again. And please track me down during the day. Thank you all.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to, again, thank everyone for being here. Sometimes the hardest part is getting off the couch, and we all did it this morning, so thank you. We're all here together as pioneers in this new industry, and we want to make sure that we, in this grassroots cooperative effort together, that we just make this industry, again, the best version of itself, making sure where we see lack from the beginning, make the changes. With education is our biggest place where we see lack, and so we're going to continue the conversation and just keep being inspired and inspiring others, each other. And so I'm just so excited to be here, and the plant. So first of all, let me start off by telling you a little bit about who I am. I am a nurse. I am a cannabis patient. It has saved me from opioids. I had broke my back several years ago and left with a giant canister of opioids. And thankfully I knew enough as a nurse that I saw what can happen. And so I knew better. And so thankfully I want others to know better as well, that there is alternative options out there. So not only am I, it has affected me in my life, both personally and professionally. It has brought generations together. My daughter, my parents, all of us can come together on a mutual understanding that this plant is medicine and it is the way to the future. So I just want to thank you all for being here and for being part of the change.
All right, thanks everyone. And again, feel free to move around and talk to the people at the different tables, have the conversations as the day goes on. So our first speaker is Felicia GreenField Lau, and she's going to be talking about her unique experience in rehabilitation and how cannabis fits together with that. I think you have a program that you've been working with the Department of Health on, is that right? You will be, okay. All right, so anyway, I'll turn it over to Felicia.
Thank you.
Thanks, Felicia.
Thank you. Hi. I am Felicia, and just Skip, what you're referring to is our R&R experience, and we got approval from the Department of Health to do this program in the dispensaries, Restore, my sister company. So I will talk a little bit about that in a bit. I just want to take a minute and say thank you. Thank you to this wonderful organization for pulling us all together today to say there's more to learn and there's a perspective that we may not know right now. We have wonderful people here at Soulful Cannabis to ask questions to, and many dispensaries and hello to everybody. This is great. So I am Felicia. I am a physical therapist and a cannabis educator. I've been a physical therapist for 27 years, and I specialize in outpatient orthopedics, breast cancer, hernia repair, and most recently, an opioid reduction program. So that has been my passion for the past year. So I became a cannabis educator a year ago, and during that journey, I realized, where am I going to fit in this amazing space? And I thought, I already am in this amazing space because I deal with it every day. You are my patients. My patients are people who have had an injury, have cancer, have some trauma, something's not working right in their system, and so their whole body, their whole life is in imbalance or out of homeostasis. And so learning about medical cannabis was amazing because it just, hi, welcome. It just brought to the surface that there's a way to help us get our bodies back into a state of homeostasis. So I will talk to you about how I envision that, what that looks like, and how everybody here has that within themselves, that ability to get back to neutral, and I want to kind of encourage that. So I am 1 week new partner and owner at Reboot Integrative Wellness Centers. This is amazing. So now we are a majority women-owned minority business that specializes in physical therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic, occupational therapy, botanical medicines, and we have a Chinese medicine doctor on site. So what that program offers us is just a whole variety of ways to help people reboot their own endocannabinoid system. And that's where the word reboot came, and the sister company Restore. All of these are ways to kind of incorporate balancing your body, balancing that homeostasis, and getting you back to where you need to be. So, I'm going to say, hey, can those guys, Jason, can we get, sorry, I'm a mom, like I know how to pull it back. So, I'd like us all to take a minute and try something different. I specialize in mindfulness meditation and bringing mindfulness to my patients, to myself, and I think it's vital to help get our feet back on the ground and listen. So I'm going to take us through, if you're with me, maybe a 2 or 3 minute, let's take a breath. Let's get into this space here, this great space. So I would invite you to sit comfortably, get your feet on the ground. If you're holding something, maybe put it down for the minute. That's great. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes or keep them open or keep them in a relaxed state. The most important thing to remember is that nobody is looking at you. Like we think everybody's looking at us all the time, but nobody gives a shit. Like everybody is so focused on themselves that we don't have to worry. So let's just go in and remember that everything we already know is already inside. We already know how we're feeling. We're just not kind of always in tune with that. We don't always listen to what our body's telling us. Are we stressed? Are we anxious? Are we hurting? Where are we even hurting? And sometimes what's amazing to me is that you wake up one day and your thumb hurts and you're like, what did I even do there? I don't even know how that happened because we're so busy doing so many things. So in this moment, we're going to rest our eyes. Let's take a nice, smooth, deep breath in through our nose and slowly breathe out through your mouth. We're going to practice this a couple times. Taking a nice, slow, deep breath in and breathe out. And when you breathe out, let's breathe out all of that stress. And knowing that in this moment, as you continue to breathe in and breathe out, that there's no place that you need to go and nothing in this moment that you need to do. We can just be right here, right now. We're going to do a quick body scan of thinking from the top of our heads and thinking through our face, our necks, our shoulders. Where are we holding stress? Thinking about our rib cage, breathing in and expanding that rib cage and taking a nice full deep breath and then breathing out. And when you breathe out, you can let whatever tension, whatever worry you're holding on to, moving down through your stomach and through your hips, into these strong legs that walk us all day long. And feel the feet firmly on the ground. And in this moment, I invite you to think of the farthest sound that you hear. There are sounds so close to us, and then there are sounds that are far, far away. And now let's bring it back inside. What do we feel in this moment? Do we feel a breeze touching our hands, or a coolness gliding across our cheeks? Do we feel our clothes sipping on our skin? And just feeling our legs and our bodies supported on our chairs. And taking a nice smooth deep breath in and slowly breathing out. And when you're ready, you can start opening your eyes and coming back to this moment. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here, to know that this was important for you in some way or another, the lessons that you were going to learn here today. And then I'd also like to take a minute to think about people that we would like to be here that are not. Maybe if they had this lesson earlier, something would have been different. Or for the injustice of so many people who are incarcerated for a reason that maybe they shouldn't be. So let's take a minute and just be silent and think about those people. And think about how these lessons today are going to impact us and our community involvement and getting the word out that this is medicine and that we could be helping ourselves and others with it. So I had a fascinating conversation yesterday with a friend, Thomas. I changed his name for this story. Thomas was a patient a while ago, a couple years ago, in for an accident of some sort. Over the time I've gotten to know him, he became my dog walker. He helps me at the house. He is just that person that I brought into my life. And while Thomas and I look very different, Thomas and I discussed yesterday how we grew up so differently. And how we're here today in this moment. He's a confidant, he's a friend, but yet on the surface, somebody would think, how do you know this person? And how do you trust him to be in your house, walking your dogs and, being that person? So when I was sharing with him is that growing up, I remember the commercials on TV with like the egg and the frying pan and this is your brain on drugs. And I was like, oh my gosh, my parents are going to kill me if I get caught smoking pot. Smoking this, illegal substance that is terrible for my brain, and what am I doing to myself? And then I learned yesterday that my friend Thomas grew up with his father never there because he was incarcerated. And he grew up with a single mom with many kids who, by the age of 10th grade, he felt like he needed to help the household more, so he dropped out of school. And by 19, he was selling marijuana on a corner. And then that progressed to other things, and he got slaps on the wrist, and eventually it progressed to where he spent some time in prison. And I'm sitting in the car with him, and I just love the honesty. I love that we can have this dialogue. And I realized, he just grew up in a different environment. That could have been me, he could have been in my shoes, and yet we're all here today saying, how do we move forward? And that's what I love about this. That's what I love about this PA Medical Cannabis program, is it allowed us to start opening this dialogue and this conversation. So, fortunately at this point, he decided many years into that prison sentence that this would never happen to him again, and he transformed his life, and he's this beautiful, amazing human being who's still struggling to find full-time work. He still struggles because of the stigma that is related to what he went through, but he is like a good person, and I'm so grateful to have him in my life and to share this story with you all of how we are all here for a reason, and it's about where we are here and where we're going forward. But let's take a journey past to 1898, when heroin became a wonder drug, and in our country they were looking for natural ways or not natural ways to help manage pain, and that's when it started. However, by 1924 they were noticing that people were having addiction issues, and that's when the government pulled back and made heroin illegal, federally illegal. It was federally illegal all the way through till about the early 80s, when a reputable journal, medical journal, came out and said that maybe it's not so addictive after all. Maybe opioid medication is not so addictive. In 1996, that's when Purdue Pharmaceuticals came out with these opioid medications that have been crippling our society ever since. In 2007, that same Purdue Pharmaceuticals got a fine of $800 million for the way they were falsely advertising to doctors about what the effects would be for all of these patients. They were fined $800 million, however their revenue was over $3 billion a year, so for them it was just the cost of doing business to kind of squelch that. So then there was this whole increase of having these beautiful videos that would be playing at doctors' offices, and high-end magazines would have articles about the wonderful nature of these opioid medications to help manage pain. So even though we knew, or we were starting to see that there was some problem here, nobody wanted to look at it. In 2015, there were enough opioids distributed for every single human that is above 18 in our country. It's a lot of people. And by 2017, that's where it got named the war on drugs, the opioid epidemic of the current day. And so many people are struggling. There are many different facts about how many people, however, Pennsylvania is really one of the highest in terms of opioid deaths per year. I have a number that's at something like 44 people for every 100,000 people are dying of opioids every day. So it's just not every day, but 44 in 100,000 people in 2017 died of opioids. And I think everybody can agree that's just a lot. That's too much. But everybody can say it's a lot and it's too much, but then what are we doing? What are we actively doing to help that? And I'm happy to say that's where I come in. How I come in is I start having these really honest, genuine conversations with my patients where I say what's working and what's not. And most times I find out that it's not working at all, that patients are still in a pretty high level of pain, even though they're taking these medications. They go to their doctor's office once a month, hoping that the doctor will continue to write the script. So they kind of say, yes, I'm in just as much pain as last month. Please do not take anything away from me. And what they don't realize is that maybe during the day, if they were being honest with themselves, it's maybe not as bad during the day. Or there's like breakthrough pain around 3 to 5, or at night it's really bad, but maybe I could have an option for something later during the day without feeling so vulnerable. So most of these visits end up in a lie. They end up where you're not being sincere with the doctor, and the doctor, from what I've seen, oftentimes just doesn't have the time to really sit there and dissect everything that you're really saying. So he's like, good, okay, let's write another. Except now it's becoming harder for them to write because of the laws that have changed. And so people are now struggling because they're not getting their prescriptions written. And thank God in the state of Pennsylvania, 2016, the laws were changed to allow medical cannabis for the patients in this Commonwealth. So initially there were 18 diagnoses and now we're up to, or 17 and now we're up to 21 approved diagnoses, with others that may be joining soon. But during that time, that last few, PTSD, was a really important one, and neuropathic pain, and cancer for my cancer population, and the amazing opioid to cannabis. Just having the desire to get off of your opioid medication is enough of a diagnosis code. It's enough of a goodwill to say, yes, let's try something else. And so what I have seen is so many patients coming to my office saying, Felicia, can you help me? Can you help me to understand what am I even feeling? And that's where the mindfulness comes in. Let's take a breath. Where are you? Let's get back in touch. Like I can address that you have pain. And the fact is that everybody's on this search for like, I want to be pain-free. And the reality is we may always have a little bit of pain. And people don't like to hear that, but it's really true. I fell about 6 years ago in front of my own house. And I fell, I shattered my elbow, I tore all the ligaments, I dislocated it, I really messed it up. I thought I was going to get like a cute little waterproof cast and be able to spend the rest of the summer in the water, and then he talked about surgery, and I was like, what are you talking about? I was out of work for 6 months. Out of work, going to my office on 2 Vicodin just to get through that therapy session of bending and straightening my arm with these people that I trust and people that I loved. However, over time, where I was getting range of motion back, over time it started fusing and fusing and fusing. And now I've lost the ability to turn my hand over, which if you can imagine, is very difficult when you're at like the bank teller and you're like in the drive-thru and you're like trying to hand that box over. That's a tough one. Hugging my kids was the biggest loss to me. And figuring out how to work as a physical therapist where I use my body and I use my arms every day to help people. And so I had to learn to modify. The blessing is I don't have pain. Not good. I don't have pain, I haven't had pain. However, my story is a little bit unusual because most people, when they have a big traumatic accident, they have pain. They have neuropathic pain. They have pain that sometimes doctors don't even understand why it's there, but it's real. And this is where this conversation comes of there are other alternatives besides just the opioid medications that we may be taking. And that's where medical cannabis comes in. With those 21 approved diagnoses, I'm sure you will learn today about the process of getting registered, seeing a physician to get certified, then going to the dispensaries, and how all the different dispensaries are fantastic. They're all here for a very good reason, yet they all have their own philosophies. They all have their own kind of je ne sais quoi, like their own little feel. And so that's where maybe if you have 1 or 2, it's good to like try and expand and see who else is out there and see what other kind of information you get, because everyone has brilliant people that are working. These are people who are thanking God every day that they get to work in a dispensary. It's combining their passion and their love and their knowledge, and we're just very fortunate because there's still many states that don't have this. So I'd like to talk to you about how to reboot your own endocannabinoid system. And what that looks like is different for everyone. So that's why there is no set plan of do mindfulness, take 2 pills, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay? What this looks like is you kind of have to earn it a little bit. You kind of have to work it. You have to kind of come in and say, kind of like you came here, it's rainy, it's cool, it's uncomfortable to go out, and say, I'm in a place that I could use to feel a little bit better. And that's where, when people are offering you massage or myofascial release, or should you get some chiropractic, or try some acupuncture even though it's different and maybe scary, or some physical therapy, it's worth listening to, but it is going to take work. It's not easy. It's not easy because you have to make an appointment, you have to show up, you have to be ready to lie down on a mat and move your body and like twist and turn and actually get in touch with like, that doesn't feel so good. And we often are very good at squelching that in ourselves so that we can get the kids going and make dinner and get through the day and get to the work on time. And we tend to forget that what's happening inside is not feeling so great. So my program involves all of those modalities, but mostly what it involves is having these honest conversations with my patients, having these honest conversations about what's working and what's not, and sharing that with you, that through medical cannabis, finding the right strain or strains, finding something for day or evening, something that you can take and you can still be fully functional to work, because many of us have to get up and get out of the house. And yet at night you want to be able to sleep. Or for my patients who have cancer, stage 4 cancer, I'm encouraging them, like, think out of your box. because there are strains of cannabis that can encapsulate the cancer and kind of suffocate it and bring it back to maybe a place that they would have more time. But this brings up an important point, is that there's not a lot of research yet. There's not a lot of evidence-based research to say that cannabis is healthy, or cannabis is going to help lower your opioids, or cannabis is a good alternative. And the reason for that is because it's federally illegal. We haven't been able to research anything. And so now, as the laws start changing, and as the government starts shifting in a way to allow more of this to become known, but until that time, we have to rely on Israel and other countries that have been having this as a medicine for a long time, where the start of learning about our endocannabinoid system came from in Israel, Raphael Meshulam, and learning about THC and CBD and how these impact our body. And I know there's many people today that will talk more about that, so I will let them do that. But I would like to share that there are options, there's hope, and there's a way to lower your pain level and get your body back into homeostasis that involves more natural approaches. Kind of getting in touch with your breathing, getting in touch with talking to people and lowering our phones down a little bit. And actually looking at each other, like looking around the room today, and I invite you to do this, which is a very unusual task, to actually look at the people you're talking to and see, I see you. And that's okay. I can be a little bit vulnerable here, and I can share with you that I'm here for a vulnerable reason, and they are too. So then let's have this conversation of like, what can I do differently than what I'm doing today? And how can I reboot my system? So I'd like to open it up for any questions, because I know I'm sharing a lot, and I'm not sure if anybody has anything specific that they would like to ask about physical therapy or a more holistic approach, cannabis as a medicine. Ellen.
Hi, do you know of other physical therapists who are doing sort of the same thing as you? Because, like, say it's in Westchester or something like that, where would a person go for a physical therapist who uses more than one modality?
That's a great question. I have patients that come 3 hours away to see me for breast cancer work and for hernia work, and I think that they come because they know that in Scranton and down by the shore, there's no one who's doing the kind of work that I'm doing, and it's helping them. And so I think at this point there are not. I think people are catching on, and that they can become a cannabis educator, that they can see that there's this perfect symbiosis between treating people holistically and treating the actual physical body. But right now I don't know of anybody, and so I encourage that for healthcare professionals to start reaching out, and I help that along by speaking at Penn and at Good Shepherd and other hospitals in the area, Abington, to let these physicians know. And once the physicians know that there's another option, then they can start talking about it more honestly.